Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make this fun Valentine's card, and I'm going to share some really fun techniques and also show you how to get a little bit more use out of your supplies. This video is brought to you by Lovin' Stampin', an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, Wendy Cranford. She's a friend of mine, and I got all these supplies from her. And since it's sale-a-bration, it's a great time to stock up on things like reinkers and paper and all the stuff that you need, that you use up, because with every $50 you spend, you get a free stamp set or other sale-a-bration items. So that's kind of cool. And if you're interested in all the sale-a-bration stuff I got, let me know and I will put a haul video up for you. I did film all the stuff as I took it out of the box, but I just kind of hesitated whether or not to post it. So if anybody's interested, let me know in the comments below and I'll pop that up probably this weekend. So we're going to use some reinkers. I'm a huge fan of buying reinkers because they are going to make your ink pads last longer. Ink pads are an investment. These, I think these were about $6.50, your full-size ink pad. And if you get a reinker to go with it, it's like you've bought 5 or 6 or 7 ink pads. So you don't have to throw that ink pad away when it goes dry. You can reink it. In fact, I am using the old style. I only have the old style ones. I don't have any of the new foam ones that have been out for the last couple of years because I bought reinkers. I keep reinking them. So I really think it's a good investment. Plus, you can use this to make your spray inks. You can use it to refill your, if you have any of these pens that you can put ink in, you can use these to refill that. You can make your own spray mists. And I'm going to show you a watercolor technique with these too, so that you can have perfectly coordinated watercolors for your stamping, which is just really wonderful. There's so many different ways you can use these. Now I will offer a tip because I had such a mess in my ink storage. Usually what I do is I throw all the same inks in a baggie. All my Stampin' Up! Inks would be in a baggie. And one of them leaked. And it got all over the labels, and I could barely make out what my label said. So keep them upright. They come in a sweet little box if you get the color family sets. They're a little cheaper that way too. In fact, what I probably recommend to somebody starting out would be to get the set of reinkers and get blank mini ink pads, because sometimes if you have more than like 3 or 4 of these big pads on your desk, you run out of space real quick. So I'd probably recommend just getting the blank mini pads and then reinkers and build your collection that way. If you find that you have a color that you're always using all the time for huge batch projects, you get that in a full pad, but that's a really economical way to do it. And then you have the reinkers for all of your other media that you want to make. You can put it with texture pastes and tint your texture pastes, and there's a lot of stuff you can really do with that. So I'm a really big fan of the reinkers because it saves you a lot of money down the road. So we are going to make this little card with a wobbly fox head. I think it's really fun. So you are going to need a little bit of wire. I also got the punch to go with these stamps because they came as a bundle. It's cheaper if you get things bundled up if you know you're going to use it. But if you're not going to use it, obviously don't buy the bundle. And I just wanted to show you what it looked like if you punched it out and you assembled it together. I did cut that little chest piece there. That wasn't one of the punched items. But the reason I like this is that I could punch these out of a bunch of scraps of cardstock, and then I could put them in a basket and take it to my kids' class, and they could make a bunch of bookmarks and pieces together and stamp on the faces, or just draw on the faces probably, because kids are really creative. So it's a great way to use up scraps. So we are going to use it to punch out the face. But I just wanted to let you know, in case you wanted both, to get them together. Don't buy them separately because you'll save some money. So the first thing we're going to do is work on the background. And for the background, I recommend that you use like a smooth watercolor paper or Bristol board. But if you don't have those, a good quality cardstock will work just fine. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to take either a little plastic block, like one of your acrylic stamping blocks, or a little palette or a plate, whatever you have, and squirt out just like a drop of a couple colors of ink. And I am using, I have got Bermuda Bay, Rich Razzleberry, and Pacific Point. And I also put a little squirt of mellow moss out because I thought I was grabbing Old Olive, but I got something else. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to just kind of press my ink pad against this and get a little of that Old Olive that way. It's not perfect because I can't really press it into the little dip, but if you're working on a tile or a plate, it would work just fine. So now we're going to do some stamping, and we're going to do some watercoloring. And this is a great technique if you're a little nervous about watercoloring freehand. It gives you all the look of watercoloring freehand, but it's a lot easier. Now, generally, I'm just using thin pieces of plexiglass for my stamps because I'm in my office stamping for the winter and I don't have as much room for my thicker blocks, and this fits right in my drawer, so it's handy. So usually you bring your stamp to your ink pad, but I'm telling you, for this technique, since I don't have to be perfect, what I do is I just bounce it around like that. And I've inked this pad a few times. It's a little dippy in the middle because it's the old felt kind. So this is going to work just fine for me. And I just have to look at my other tree because I'm not sure if this is the big one or the little one. This is the little guy. So I'm going to stamp him right here. I think I'm going to go up a little higher because I felt like I had him way too low. I will have to trim this panel down a little bit before I'm done. And I'm not going to worry that I didn't get that good in the middle because I am stamping kind of on a table that isn't the best. I'm going to stamp one back here. And yeah, I need to put something under my, I need to put something under here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab a pad of paper. So if you find that your table, you're just like not getting a very good impression, go ahead and get like a pad of paper, a phone book, something like that you can put under there. It's going to give it a better surface. So before this sets up too much, I'm going to go in with a wet brush and just wet those tree areas. And since this cardstock has a bit of a coating on it, it's going to let that ink flow a little bit. See that? It's not really bounding up or bonding to the paper. If you were doing this on like a photo paper or a fast dry printer paper, it would totally want to dry on you. So what I want to do in this one in front is add some colored ink. Grab a little bit of that old olive because that's what we already have. Grab a little bit of this, I think this is the Pacific Point. And just let the colors flow. And so all of a sudden you've got this beautiful watercolor technique, but you don't have to like fret about doing it perfect. I'm gonna grab some of, this is the Pacific Point. This is the bluer. Let's get some of that in there. And then I can actually even pull, isn't that pretty? I could pull some of that right out. I love it. I love it. Over here, I think I want a little bit more of the olive. Another thing you can do too, if you're not familiar with these ink pads, they're kind of tricky to get used to, but if you close up the ink pad and you squeeze it like that, it makes a little watercolor palette, so you could pick up your paint that way too. So that's kind of what we used to do in the old days, back in the day. And I'm just going to add a little bit more of this kind of tealy color. But just kind of let the paint do its thing. Oh yeah, I want to pull some of that out too because that's really pretty when that happens. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stamp some of the bigger trees. Get the bigger tree stamp here. I'm going to do my same thing where I just kind of smash the ink pad on it. I think you do probably get a better, since I don't have the thicker block, I'm just afraid of getting my fingers all inky, and then because I'm kind of a klutz. And then sticking it somewhere I don't want it to later. So in this case, I want a lighter tree and a darker tree. So I think I want my darker tree down here a little bit. And then I'm just actually not going to re-ink it. I'm going to stamp it back up here. I'm still having an issue. Maybe it's a stamp block. But that's all right. For this technique, I don't have to worry about it being perfect. I'm going to go in and re-wet my trees. I think that's probably why they changed over to the newer foam pads, because that would happen a little more often with the felt ones. After they get old, they kind of sink in the middle. I typically don't have a problem with it. For some reason, this olive one is giving me a little bit of grief today, but it doesn't really matter for this technique, so I'm not gonna fret about it. This one in the back, I want to be a little bit more blue, and you can see how strong that ink is. It doesn't shift as much as it dries, I've noticed, versus like a regular watercolor paint. I'm going to try picking up some of that olive ink right off the ink pad. Grab a little bit of that in there. Like seeing the colors flow together. I think that's kind of fun. And again, I'm going to let the ink kind of flow out a little bit. Now I can go ahead and pick up colors right from the little ink palette that I have there. It's just a simple little watercolor palette, or any sort of little paint palette. It's nothing fancy. And I'm going to do some colors up in the sky. Sometimes I'll wet my paper first if I feel like the color's strong. Like this rich raspberry is a really strong color, so I really like to dilute it down a little bit. But I wanted that in the sky because I'm doing a Valentine's card, so I wanted to have that pink in there. And then I'm going to grab some of this blue, which is the Pacific Point. I'll mix it in so it gets a little violet. And I'm not worried about the edges because I am going to trim this down. Now you could sprinkle salt into this if you want that salty texture, like snow's falling. But I think that I'm actually just going to spatter on some other colors. I kind of like how that's doing that. You can blot it up with a paper towel if you don't like that look. So if I wanted to get rid of it, I just take a paper towel and just dab it. And this is Bristol paper, so it will stain a little bit, but I'm not really too worried about that. I don't worry about too much when I'm creating. Watercolor is only, or ink is only going to travel where the paper's wet. So if you want to avoid any of that, just don't wet up close to the trees. Leave a little bit of a gap. I do want a little bit of like a mountain or something in the background. So what I'm going to do is I've actually already mixed some rich raspberry and some Pacific Point, and that's giving me a violet color. And you can let this ink dry right in that palette and you can go use it later because you don't want to waste it. It's going to be, even one drop of each color is probably going to be more than you're going to need. You can see as the paper dries, I get a much darker color here, which I am going to spread out with a wet brush. But this is a background. Think of this as like your background paper. You know, it's okay if it's not all detailed. We want this kind of fuzzy so that the emphasis will be on our cute little fox that we're going to stamp in a minute. All right, and now I want to add some spatters. So I'm going to take the raspberry color, rich raspberry, splatter some of that on. I'm going to splatter on some of this pretty green color. And see, if anything's not perfect, it's not even going to show. Okay, we're getting a beautiful, loose watercolor background here. And I know a lot of times we want to like control everything and make everything super perfect. But our stamping, our fox is going to be really detailed. We don't need everything to be detailed. This will make the more detailed areas show up. And then I like to blast it with a heat tool really quickly just to help it dry. But you don't have to. You can just set it aside and let it dry. Sometimes I find if you do have a problem with it curling, we're going to trim it down and adhere it down, so it's not really a big deal. But if you do have trouble with it curling, you could either A, tape it down before you begin, or I find heating it from the back often will prevent it from, it'll just help it flatten out a little bit better. But I find as soon as it dries, it usually goes back to normal. Now, another thing that you can do is you can pick up your paint again or your ink again with a paintbrush, and you can go and add details if you feel like you want them. I don't want them on this card, but that's something you can do if that's bothering you. Another thing you can do is re-ink up your stamp really carefully and stamp it on top, and then you could get a much more crisper tree. Again, that's up to you. I would encourage you to experiment with that on a scrap of paper. But for me, I'm really happy with this loose background. I mean, if you look at the finished card, the background is really sloppy and loose, okay? So I'm not tricking you here or anything. That's how it is, so that our foreground details really show up. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is stamp our little fox. So what I did was I punched this out of some cardstock and just set it aside. And we're going to stamp on this. We're going to use one stamp. There are different faces. There are different combinations you can do for building your fox, or you can do, there's a lot of different combinations here. I'm just going to show you really quick so you see, because I was surprised at how much came in here. There's a fox, you can do a cat, you can do a raccoon, you might even be able to do a bear, I'm not sure. But there's a lot of different combinations here, and I just wanted to kind of keep it simple, but I did like having that layering ability. And you don't have to have the punch. You can cut this out by hand. It's totally fine. And I've just got another piece of smooth white stamping cardstock here as well. So what I'm going to do is ink this up really well, and I'm going to do it the proper way because this needs to be good. This needs to come out really nice. So I just want to make sure I get a nice even inking here. And I do want to mention that if you're using the foam pads, the new one, I engineered them so you just need a gentle tap on the ink pads. This is the older felt and fabric style, and you do need to be a little bit more aggressive when you ink those up. Okay, and I'm just going to give give my stamp a chance for the ink to go from the stamp onto the paper, and it's really important to give yourself time to do this. Okay, we got a pretty good impression there. There's a little spotting in the face, but that's okay because we're going to restamp that. And then here, I can re-ink the whole thing, but really I just want to ink up the face because that's all that I'm really going to be stamping. Sometimes I tap it a few times just to, like, just to make sure that the ink is really evened out there. And the thing I want to keep in mind is that, and I'm going to put this on a contrasting little scrap of cardboard here. I don't want to stamp the shoulders, so I just have to make sure that when I stamp this, I'm not going to be stamping the shoulders. So I'm just going to, oh, this is very difficult to line up without having my head right over it. I'm trying to keep it so that you see it good. So hopefully that's right. But if I get it wrong, I can flip it over and stamp it on the other side because this is a symmetrical face. So it's perfect. I can just flip it over and do it on the other side if I need to. And let's see. Oh, perfect. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, great. Alrighty. And then there's a couple little details I want to stamp. And I am just going to grab them. I just put them both on one block and put them on either side. So I got the little face, and I'm inking this up in early espresso. So far I've used pumpkin pie. The background I used old olive, and this is early espresso. And this is just going to go down the bottom of the face like that. And then there's two little legs, which I totally missed until I was like almost done the card, and I didn't put it on the other card because I didn't realize that was there until I was working with the punches. The little legs in there. Oh, there we go. That's pretty cute. Okay, so now I want to cut this out. There may be dies that go with this. I am not 100% sure. I'm just going to cut it out by hand so I don't have to run downstairs to my die cutter. It's pretty easy. I'm cutting it out with a little bit of a border because that's what the punch does. The punch gave me a little bit of a border on the face, so I just wanted to match that. And again, you don't have to be perfect. I wanted this as one layer so I didn't have to, all these pieces of the body come separately, but I wanted it all as one layer because it's just a little bit, it's going to be easier to glue because I am going to be using some dimensionals, so I want it to be easy to adhere, and I don't want it to like fall off. Have you ever done that? Have you ever mailed a card to somebody and it comes in pieces? It's like, here you go, I sent you an activity. Yay! So now you can be a card maker too. You can put together this card that just fell apart. If you've ever used a glue stick on something, you feel my pain. I'm sure it's happened to you. Okay, and I also want to stamp a couple other little things. I'm going to stamp a little stump right here, and I'm going to do that with the early espresso. Well inked. And again, give it time to transfer. And I'm going to stamp this adorable little heart bubble, this little word bubble, with Melon Mambo, which is, I think, my favorite reddish pink color they have. It's just really, it's slightly cool. It's a slightly cool pink. It does when it fades out, it does go a little bit redder, but it's still a very cool, cool pink color. Got to be stingy. You got to stamp this over here so I have all that paper I can use for something else. Q-tips. These work so well for different little techniques. So first what I'm going to do, I've just got this box of pastels. I'll show you here. They're student quality pastels. They're like, I don't know, this big box is probably like $14. So what I'm going to do is just pick up some of this chalk on this Q-tip. And these are the same pastels I would use for sketching. There's, you know, you don't have to buy special ones just for stamping. They sell them in little palettes. They're actually awful cute if that's all you're going to do with them. But I'm up in my office, so anything that's in here needs to earn its keep. It needs to be a little bit darker pink here. It needs to be, you know, completely multi-purpose. So there we go. You can also do that with a colored pencil, just really light touch. And now I am going to use a couple shades of brown. I'm going to start with kind of like an ochre color. If you get too much chalk on, you can use an eraser. And then I'm going to use a little brown on the bottom. And so basically you'll see this more where like the where the wood grain is. I just think it's really pretty. I just think it adds a little bit of something. It doesn't take very long, but it just adds another layer of depth and dimension, which if you can do that in a couple of seconds, why not? Okay, so the other really fun thing I want to share with you is making a bobblehead. And I've got some wire here. It really doesn't matter what wire you use. And what you want to do is just wrap it around like a pen or a pencil a couple times. And I've seen little wobbler springs. Actually, I've had some wobbler springs that you can use that they're commercially made, but they're kind of harder to find and they're a little pricey. And everyone can find some wire. I mean, you could probably, I don't know, find some sort of spring that you can use for this, even if you don't have this particular spool. And I'm going to use a hot glue gun. And I'm going to put hot glue on the base part. And what you want to do is just make sure that you bury that wire in the glue. Because the glue kind of has to go over the wire. It has to really trap it in there. So I'm just going to bring that up there so you can see. Got our wire. Hopefully you can see that there. You can see if I have it sideways. See that wire is glued on there. And now I am going to do the same on the top. I'm going to put the glue on the back of the head here. A fairly generous amount. And you want to hold this though. You want to just you want to kind of hold it so that it's going to be pressing the wire in. Ooh, that's a little hot, so be careful. So if I look, I can peek around here on the back and I can see that I have trapped that wire in there, and that's what you want, because otherwise that would pull off, because wire is pretty thin and pretty slippery. So just make sure that you get that trapped in really well. We'll compress it a little bit in a minute, but we need to let that just dry just as it is. Okay, so set that aside to dry. And now we simply need to trim this down. So I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I'm back and I've trimmed this, and you can see it already looks a lot neater now that it's trimmed down to fit our card base. This is just a like half a sheet of cardstock card, and I think it's like that melon mambo color actually. So that's a nice thing about working with Stampin' Up! Products is you can coordinate everything, especially using your inks as watercolors. You know everything's going to match, and you don't have to you don't have to buy a bunch of pattern paper and then hope you can find things to match it, because I'm like, it's kind of like those pattern leggings. I love pattern leggings. They're so cute, and then I can never find any tops to go with it. That's kind of like what pattern paper is sometimes, and it's like if you don't get your pattern paper out and then color everything to match your paper, it's really hard to match something you've colored afterwards. So I just love how this is all coordinated. So this was probably the most excited thing, the thing I was most excited about getting from Stampin' Up! During the sale-a-bration, and this is a embossing folder, but look how thick this is. I mean, it's as thick as a cutting pad. And the way you use it in your Big Shot is that you use this, you have your platform, you have this with your paper in it, and then you have one cutting pad, and that's it. You don't, I have the platform that has the 2 tabs. I didn't have, well, I'm just looking back at my machine. I had one tab in and one tab out. So I'm not sure if the Stampin' Up! Big Shot has tabs on it or not, but so basically you're using this in place of one of the cutting pads. And then you get this really nice, like it's embossed, but it's actually got like more than just, usually you have like a raised area and then a flat area, and this is like gradiated area in between. I just thought that was really pretty, even though it doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't really go with this, but I just was so excited to use it that I had to find a way to make this work. I'm like, okay, well, it's like honeycomb, so that's a natural element. So this is a natural looking card. I'm going with it. I'm going to make it work. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw some foam squares here. And we're going to stick that down to the card. Actually, I should make sure this isn't wider than I want it before I do that. That's cute. I like that. That's not too wide. Always check that before you glue it down. Make sure it's not too wide. And I like to be generous with my foam because it'll just help it from getting crushed in the mail or whatnot. I think I need a couple more pieces. The stamp school is getting kind of long. I'm pretty involved. I didn't think this card was going to be that involved. So probably if you were like doing a card for like an entire batch, or cards for an entire batch of kids in grade school or something, you probably want to get the punch, get the scrap paper, make some cute little tags and put them on like a candy bag or something, because this would be probably a little involved, but it's perfect for making for your husband or your wife or whatever. Okay, so I want my little stump to be there. I'm just gonna go ahead and hot glue it. Now, one thing that I found, I'm using like a metallic coppery paper because I know that with embossing folders like this, metallics look really nice because they kind of show off, they shimmer. So if you want to do that technique I showed you last week where we made our own shimmer paper, that would be perfect because it's gonna reflect. It's gonna reflect on all those surfaces. So if the paper has a sheen, it just makes it look mwah, just perfect. All right, so just do a little bit of fussing. This does take a little bit of fussing. You fuss it so you have it just right. If you don't have the head lined up right, you just twist it, and then the spring will hold it in place. Now for adhering this down, what I want to do on the back is use some more foam tape because I'll adhere the back of this to the background, and there's foam tape under there, so that will kind of take up the gap and make it the right level. I'm gonna do a little piece under his tail because I don't want that getting bent. You don't want your tail bent out of shape. And there we go. And I'm going to sit him right on that stump. Cute as can be. And he's got a bobblehead. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. He's just hanging out, doing his thing, bobbling around. You could put a little smidgen of glue under there if you wanted to. I think he's all right, but if you felt like you wanted that, then go right ahead. So we got this here. I just love that. I think that is so cute. I'm going to use a little foam square for that too. You don't have to. It's up to you. A couple of these little guys. Well, we got the dimension anyway. This is probably one of those you're going to want to mail in a padded mailer if you're not hand delivering it because it does have a lot of thick spots. And it's gonna, you don't want to send a card to somebody and have them have postage due. I've done that before with thank you cards. How rude, right? Hey, thanks for the gift. By the way, you owe so much. You owe 35 cents for that card. So I just printed that on the printer. I had told you that I had done a computer generated sentiment. I put I'm wild about you. You could put I'm wild about you Valentine or anything like that. I just thought this isn't a Valentine's set and I wanted to make it more useful and I thought this would be so cute for Valentine's, so that's what I'm gonna do. And then I like to make it look kind of like a banner. Now if you had like a airplane stamp, you could have like the tail of an airplane stamp there and have it like pulling the banner. That would be super cute. I probably do have an airplane stamp, but sometimes you go and I don't know about you, sometimes you can just get paralyzed by how many possibilities that you have and you just gotta say, I'm making this card. This card is gonna get done. If I try to make it perfect, it's not gonna get done. It's just, gotta be realistic here. For goodness sake, I'm making a bobblehead. What more do you want, people? I might have to flatten that glue out a little bit because it is a bit extreme. You know what? And let's see if we can actually. Oh, it's trapped in there pretty good. But I'm going to see if I can use the tip of this glue gun to flatten that down a little bit. Oh, I can. I don't know why it's bugging me so much, but it just, because I couldn't squash the head down as much as I wanted to. I gotta let that dry, but then I can squash it down. And it won't be like the head is like a foot above the face. A foot above the body. There we go. I have like asbestos hands. I can squeeze it a little bit now. All right. I always feel like my stamp school episodes are a little bit what to do, a little bit what not to do, a little bit of a cautionary tale, but we do end up with a cute card in the end, which is all that matters, really. And we have fun doing it. I think so. I have fun. I hope you have fun. I don't know. So there you have it, a very fun and cute card for Valentine's Day. Of course, you could change up the sentiment, make a happy birthday, maybe not put the, the kissy bubbles there, put something else there. But I'll give you another quick peek at this set. There's lots of cute options. That's why I picked it up. I mean, my kids are getting older. I'm not making so many cutesy cards anymore, but I mean, this is so sweet. And I just love the woodland theme, little mushrooms and the little deer. This is smaller. These are 60% of the actual image size, as you can see. How much bigger that is. But I just thought this was a really versatile set and I couldn't wait to use it. It was the thing I was most excited to use. If you want to see the other things I got from Stampin' Up! This time around and the free sale-a-bration items, just let me know in the comments below. If people want to see it, then I'll post the video. I already filmed it. I filmed it before I put anything away because I'm like, well, I'm not going to do a haul video and then have everything look all grungy and gross because, quite frankly, everything's stained, but it gets in my hands for 5 minutes. it does not look new anymore, I'll tell you that. I want to thank you so much for watching. I want to thank my friend Wendy from Lovin' Stampin' for sponsoring this video. Go check her out. I will give you a little tip though. If you are doing like a huge order, just I would go through the links in the video description and order it, because you'll get extra like hostess benefits and stuff. But if you're just thinking, well, I just want to order $50 worth, I want to restock on my inks, I want to get a few stamp sets and get a free sale-a-bration stamp set, then you go to her website and use her host code, because that will give you free card kits. She treats her customers right, and she does these cute make and takes on her YouTube channel. I'll link her YouTube channel up in the iCard so you can go follow her. But she's so generous of spirit and time, and just a wonderful person. I can't recommend her enough. I just hope you check her out. So many ideas for free on her blog too. So give her a look. And if you're looking for Stampin' Up! Products, and you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, hey, she's a perfect one. Just go check her out. And she could actually hook you up if you wanted to be a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator too. So there you go, one-stop shop. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you give watercoloring with your inks a try, because the more versatile you make your products, the more versatile I don't know, the more use you'll get out of them, I guess. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.